Hello, I'm Rusty, and I'm back in the Inescapable Prison by Stuff Plus. And in the last video, I told you that I had optimized the power. It turned out it wasn't quite optimized. And those of you who know how this works spotted that, I no doubt. And you will have to hover over the transformer to see why it wasn't optimized. Now, in this one, you can see that power production is 4,662 units. And in this one, it is in use by the prison. So there is an expenditure of 1175, giving us an excess of 3,487 units. In the original layout by Stuff Plus, they had 3,939 excess units that they were exporting, even though their total production, I think, was 12,800 a day. That's why we had to split it up. The 12,800 exceeded the total cap that the transformer can have, which is only 5,000 units. So when I reduced it to 5,000, what happened was there was still 3,939 current excess power to export. But I'd put another 10 on the second block, which was daylight generating 5,000 units, and I had 2 left. Now, with this warden, the ecologist, I actually was generating 6,600 a day during the daytime. So I was still over-generating. I was still exceeding the power production cap by 1,600 units. So, knowing that, I've reduced it down to 7. 8 would take us slightly over the 5,000 cap. 7 takes us under, so we're under generating per day. There's capacity in the transformer to hold some more power. We could add in solar panels, we could add in wind turbines. Solar panels and wind turbines, I think, are 150 base value. I'm not sure what they are with the ecologist on. But there's no real need because we're close enough to the transformer's ceiling that we don't really need to use those older technologies. It'd be a waste. Now, because I've redone this, I've got 3 grids and 1 hybrid on its own, which is funny. And if I go to cash flow, our power export now is 19,918. In the previous video, it was somewhere over 15,000. So you can see that the effect the cap has on your exports can have a big difference. In the previous video, it wasn't really clear that I hadn't truly optimized it, but you can see the difference between the two, between being over the ceiling, what seems like just a small amount, 1,600 units, and being under it by 338 units. Even though I'm under the ceiling by 338 units and I have more total infrastructure, my profit is substantially greater. This is the point I'm trying to make to people so they can see the benefit of optimizing your exports. So I do have the ecologist on. We can go over to the game settings again in extras and change it back to what it was when we started, which was this warden. And this will have an effect. I can't hear any sound. Why can't I hear any sound from the game? I don't know. But now let's have a look at what it's generating. You can see that it's dropped. It's mid-afternoon and the amount of power it's generate has dropped. That's the meter, that's the transformer. So we switch back to the ecologist. It's 3,500. They divide that by 7 because there's 7 solar wind hybrids. That's 500 each. So let's go back to map settings and put the ecologist back on. See, power production's jumped substantially just by changing the warden to the ecologist. So the ecologist doesn't just give you a better sale price for your power exports, they also give you a more efficient network, which gives you more electricity being stored and in the transformer. So the two things that the ecologist warden does, and that is what contributes to you getting that extra 4,000 currency. There's one thing else I've done over here which I can showcase for you, and that is in the kitchen. I've just amended the utilities so that route now goes along the outside and this runs into a power switch. I just had to move the table 1 square over to make this work. And this runs into the kitchen and switches off and on all the ovens and fridges. The game doesn't really care whether food spoils or not, except if it's fresh like this is. I'll show you that in a second. This power switch is connected up to this door timer. What I've done is I set it, that doesn't work, Rusty, you can't zoom in on the door timer control, to 5-hour blocks. I'll show you why it's 5-hour blocks in a minute. We have to go to the regime for that. Eat time is between 7 and 9 and 9 and 11 in this particular setup. And cooks start preparing meals 3 hours before an eat time. So I've set the power switch to be active for these 3 hours, then for the eat time, because cooks will replenish the serving tables while eat time is active. So they'll continue to make food. So this 5-hour block, the ovens and fridges are switched on for the cooks to make food, and the same with this one. What this means is we're not drawing as much power when it's not food preparation time as we are when it is. So the effect of our green technology up here is slightly greater if we control the power usage. You could use this anyway. It's quite an interesting idea. Workshops it also works in. You could do the same idea, set it to, where's the work time switch? If you have work set up to security grades, you can use the relevant grade. But if it's on any, you just use the work free time and work lockup slots, set the workshop to open, and then make sure all your machinery is hooked up to the power switch. And then you can switch your workshop on and off and save some power, which means that your exports are slightly higher than they would be without controlling the power. So it's a nice little trick you can use just to squeeze a little bit more exports out of the same amount of solar wind hybrids. Now, this isn't going to make a lot of difference because I've added in this over here. So I've added in an extra water pump for one thing, so that we don't have to bring a large pipe through here under the door, which would be a security breach for the design that Stuff Plus has planned. But I've added in an allotment here and a pantry here. The pantry is all shelved with storage shelves, which you can find in objects, the same ones I used in the storage area that you might have noticed. And this just enables neater stacking in that. So we have this hooked up in logistics and crop distribution. So we can go from the farm, the allotment, sorry, it's not a farm. We can go from the allotment directly to the kitchen, or if we've got surplus, we can go to the pantry first and then to the kitchen. So the farmers can bring food straight to the kitchen and put it here for the cooks to use. Or if there's surplus, there's no room in the kitchen, it can go in the pantry. We just need to check the policy and the ingredients tab and set the ratio to use more fresh than imported. Now, the prison has almost run out of imported ingredients now. There are quite a lot in storage when I switched over, about 600. So we've run those down, and now we are only left with fresh ingredients. And this will impact our finances because fresh ingredients are cheaper than imported ingredients. So our prison of food now is costing us less, $60. So that has impacted on our bottom line is less higher than it was. We still have to buy the seeds, so there is still a cost, and we saw that in policy. It tells you what the cost is of crops. 100 crops per day cost $420. So there is a cost, but it's lower than it would have been if we were using all imported ingredients. All imported ingredients, I think, was somewhere around $2,800, 2,800, somewhere around there. So switching over to having the allotment has helped to bring down the costs that the prison was running. And when we started optimizing, we were looking at somewhere, was it 47,000? I think we had a 5,000 net. And now, because I've made a few changes, one to the optimization and the other to food distribution by using fresh ingredients, we have got a 23,000 net profit instead. Very simple changes that are easy to make. We had all this surplus room, so we're not affecting anything in the prison. There's a notebook page. All the collectibles are available again because I've reloaded the game. So there you go. A little bit of sleight of hand on my part, but I hope you can see now what a difference it really does make to break the grid up into smaller components. And you notice I don't need all 10 batteries. These are generating more than the previous setup, but I don't expect this to get full. In fact, it's 7 p.m. now. We can find out. We've still got a battery in our pocket at the moment. So let's just fast forward to the end of the day and see if we complete charging this last battery. I don't expect to because the night charging rate is lower than day charging rate. So we are on it. Got 4 hours. Will it complete? Have I actually undercut myself slightly? Should I put another one on? So it's 33% at 10. That's 1 hour, I think. So I think it's just the right number. So that is 4, 5, 6, 7 batteries. 1 battery per solar wind hybrid. And yes, there's loads of room in there. What did we make? Can't see because this is annoying. 18,000, I think it says. 18,798. So it's a little bit lower because I put in the stuff here. So that's going to take some electricity that I wasn't using before. I've got an entirely new room that's going to take some electricity. So I have increased the amount of power the prison needs to use. Oh, I've put in some metal detectors over here as well because there's a lot of contraband getting into the prison. So I've just shored that up a little bit. So to shore it up, that's one of the reasons to use storage shells, of course, is that you can compact down the amount of space that everything's been stored in to make it easier to patrol. So I've got a dog patrol going up down here looking for contraband in storage. You can't use storage shells in deliveries as far as I know. So they're doing a zigzag path through here looking for anything sneaking in here. But that only finds smelly contraband, so I've added in metal detectors on the entrance. I've used more than one. One thing that a lot of people don't know is if a metal detector is set off, it's inactive for 5 seconds or so. It's not detecting anything. See that white flash? If we get a positive, it goes red. And until the red light goes out, it's not actually detecting anymore. So if you put a few with a few tails in between, it just catches the person who's following the person who set it off so that you don't let them through with contraband. So this is just an easy way to control for that. One of the easiest designs. So a different design would be to lock the door and make them use a different door using the close on trigger servo. It's just by clicking on a servo, a normal servo, And instead of being on open on trigger, use close on trigger. But to do that, you need one-way routes because the door will lock. And there we go. That's not detecting now. The red light's gone out, so it's active again. Right, so I'm going to test that you can actually hear anything before I upload this one because I can't hear anything from the game. So it might just be me talking. But I think I've explained it adequately. The second phase of optimization and what a big difference this makes to your food prices. Now, the next step from here would be to expand the kitchen so we can put it back to high for all of these prisoners. So because they're supermax, having high quality, high variety helps keep them a little bit less violent, especially when using fresh ingredients. Fresh ingredients have a calming effect on them. So it's very useful to make sure that you eat as many as you can get into them. Right, well, that'll do from me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.